Welcome to Sound and Fury. I am Eric Wilford Watson.
And I go by many names. Some call me Hugh.
Today we're going to talk about a book adaptation from a classic science fiction novel that was one of the key ripoff points from George Lucas when he made Star Wars. And of course, I'm talking about Isaac Asimov's Foundation on Apple TV. But yes, Dune. It was a book, then it was a movie, then it was a miniseries, then it was a movie.
Yes.
I watched it in the theater the day it came out.
I did not.
You watched it on a phone?
I watched it at home on my TV in 2 parts. Yes.
So, with that being established, what did you think of the Dune movie?
Are we already spoiling?
Yeah, for the entire duration of this video, spoilers, what the hell.
Of all the half movies I've ever watched, it was probably the better half of a half movie that could be just as good as the second half if I see the second half, if they make the second half. Kind of reminds me of John Carter from Mars. Still waiting for the other half of that one. Actually, you know what it reminds me of? Doors of Stone!
Although this probably will take less than eternity to make a second part.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
They actually just announced in the news today that they are officially making number 2.
Who does number 2 work for?
Okay, so...
Of Dune, not Doors of Stone.
Okay, yeah. I noticed that this one's like 99.9% Zendaya free. I was promised Zendaya, and she wasn't really in it. I mean, kinda. But, I mean, she was in this movie almost as much as Kevin Costner's hairline was in The Big Chill.
Yeah.
Barely. So, I don't know. Partway into it, got about halfway in or an hour and a half in, and I realized, okay, so having seen the miniseries and having seen the first movie a long time ago, or most of the first movie...
This isn't going to end in the time allotted.
Yeah, either that or they're going to have to really, really rush it. And then 45 minutes later, it's like, okay, well, where are they going to end this exactly? They would have, what was it, Denis Villeneuve? What's the name of the director?
The guy.
Villain.
Let's call him Bob.
Sure. Bob the Villain. So Bob the Villain, what he really could have done is filmed both of them at the same time. Because they do that now.
Well, it's a matter of whether he had the budget to do it, or I think I want to make 6 hours of movie for a... His Blade Runner sequel didn't do all that great in the box office either, so they may have hesitated to give him the full...
but otherwise it's, well, I need $300 million to make half a movie.
I wonder how much that was marketing too. Did they know they're going to make a second movie all along, but if it does good at the box office, we'll make a sequel. Wink, wink, wink.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I enjoyed it. I'm going to have to be completely honest with you here.
No, lie to me.
Okay.
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies.
I'm a book guy, but I never really could get into the Dune novel. And I tried to read it. I forced myself to read that thing. I listened to the audiobook. I just could never get into it. It just seemed so long, drawn out, and just unexciting. It was a book about ideas, and they were interesting ideas, but I don't know if each individual unique thought needed its own 200 pages. So I had a hard time with the book. The source material isn't my favorite thing, and I'm probably going to lose some street cred with my sci-fi for not being a huge Dune book fan.
So the source is not with you?
Yes. But no, I liked the movie quite a bit. If you know what it is going into it, if you're not expecting it to be the world's most exciting, fast-paced adventure story, you know it's more of a intellectual, hard sci-fi, and I don't mean hard as in difficult. I mean hard sci-fi as in like real science fiction.
They go out of their way to explain navigators and
Yeah, they show how the things work in detail. It's not like Star Wars where they just kind of do.
yeah.
No, no. This one goes there, that one goes there, right?
One of the more interesting things I came across recently was I was looking at the reviews of this.
Oh.
And I went to RottenTomatoes.com and I went to IMDb, and I got a kick out of reading the bad reviews for this movie.
Ah. Okay.
Which I have some of which on my handy little clipboard here.
Yay, bad reviews.
These are bad, not critic reviews, these are bad audience reviews. I thought you might get a kick out of some of these.
I thought the plot line was too easy to follow. David Lynch.
Very, very boring movie. The most boring movie I've ever seen. The worst movie in the world.
You need to check out Birdemic.
Another offensive remake. Hollywood hasn't had an original idea in 30 years. It destroys the reputation of the original.
I agree with the part of Hollywood has not had an original idea in 30 years. I remember going to a theater back in 2006, 7, maybe 5, somewhere around there, and seeing remake, sequel, remake, sequel, remake, and there was literally no movie on like 8 different screens playing that was not a sequel or a remake, and that was
years ago.
That was years ago. It was a dozen years ago. So has it gotten better? No.
I just don't think it's fair to call Dune a remake because it's really an adaptation of the novel. They're not really looking at the Lynch movie. They're not looking at the miniseries from the Sci-Fi Channel. They're adapting the book. I don't think it's fair to call it a...
Yeah, we'll watch our show on remakes. But yeah, it is not a remake.
I'm guessing
Although
whoever wrote this didn't know it's based on a book.
Yeah, but I think they're really dwelling on the unoriginal part,
Yeah.
right? So it's yet another take on a movie that's been done twice. Or
That is a fair point.
Miniseries.
That is a fair point, but I still think it's enough different from the other adaptations that it doesn't count as a remake, and I don't think it deserves to be dinged for being unoriginal.
Yeah, what I found...
Did you write this review?
What I found is that a lot of it was very predictable because I watched
Well, yeah,
the
if you already know
miniseries.
the story.
Right. And same thing with, like, they redid The Lion King, and it's kind of shot for shot the exact same movie. It's just with more realistic.
Well, the worst example of that is when they redid Psycho.
Oh, it's
Exactly the same movie, only
Oh.
not as good, but
Yeah.
it's shot for shot literally exactly the
yeah,
same.
yeah. So you find yourself really knowing exactly what's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen, and you've kind of already seen it. And then they left out some of the stuff, like some of the intrigue between,
Mm-hmm.
they jump from, okay, well, the Emperor set us up for failure. Okay, we get that. But there wasn't any in between. In the miniseries, there's a lot of, like, I don't know, like a year or a few months or whatever of, like, kind of the buildup of will they or won't they? Is the Emperor going to do something or is he not?
Where the attack seemed a little bit, well, shall we say, sooner than expected?
Yeah,
compared to
yeah. It's like the House Atreides lands and then the Sarkari,
I'm really terrible at these fictional proper nouns.
sarcasms. I think they're called sarcasms.
That's probably it.
Yeah, and I think they're
The invasion of the sarcasm.
the occasion of and they land like just behind them. They've barely established, a foothold or whatever. They haven't had time to like get the spice flowing. Whereas in the miniseries, you see the trials and tribulations, and maybe that makes it even more boring. And maybe you couldn't make something like the miniseries now because audiences are different and they demand action now.
Well,
right
unless
away.
you're going to make an 8-hour long movie in the theater, I don't think you can really. You kind of have to take a
It
little
worked
bit.
for Avengers Endgame.
Well, that's true. Anyway, I want to read more of the terrible reviews. These are fun.
Right.
Boring as a whole. Boring.
Depends on how boring your hole is.
Boring has a whole new name.
boring. Oh.
Aquaman and Drax together for the worst time.
Although I don't think they shared a scene together. Yeah.
Literally nothing happens. That's an entire review.
Literally nothing happens. Well, if it's Drax, yeah.
I will catch it. Nothing goes over my head. No plot and super, with lots of R's, boring.
Again, you need to see Birdemic.
Okay, you might like this one.
Okay.
I thought it was a waste of a good... Oh, excuse me. I thought it was a waste of good actors. Cheap knockoff of Star Wars. No wonder I never saw the original.
That's awesome. That is awesome. At one point, Microsoft was able to sue a company that they stole software from because they had better lawyers. And that's exactly what that review was. It's basically, okay, so, you know...
There's another similar one here that was 1 star, too much like Star Wars.
Too much like Star Wars. Huh. Yeah, so when did Frank Herbert write this? In the 40s? 50s?
Way before, I don't know the year, but it was way before Star Wars.
Yeah.
I'm thinking 60s, early 60s. I'll put it up on the screen, but it was way before Star Wars.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's just funny that people don't know that this is... Even though this movie came out after Star Wars, the source material predates Star Wars and by a lot. I mean,
Right.
Spice... Well, where else?
Spice Mines of Kessel.
How the hell did George Lucas didn't independently come up with a space movie that had spice mines? He read Dune. Tatooine on a desert planet where there's sand people. Come on, that's obviously Dune.
It's all true.
Right, but that was based on...
I do find it interesting that two of the biggest influences that George Lucas had making Star Wars are both being adapted at the same time. You got Dune on the big screen, and then you got Isaac Asimov's Foundation on the small screen.
Right.
And both are very similar adaptations in that they're not... It's like, if you take Star Wars, remove all of the aliens, remove all of the swashbuckling adventure, remove all of the fun, remove all of the humor, and you get... But that sounds bad when you say it that way, but that's... George Lucas, those are the things he added into it. He took these stories and put his own, fun spin on it. Yeah. But looking at the original source material, seeing where it came from in a modern adaptation, I think is pretty fun.
Yeah. And you just have to appreciate it for what it is. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot more, there's politics and there's a lot more intrigue, I guess, except the intrigue was kind of missing out of this one. So it lacked the action of a good action movie, and it lacked the intrigue of a good political intrigue movie. So they went for somewhere in the middle and missed both marks, I think.
And I think this is one of the interesting pieces about watching it on television versus watching it on the big screen. Because watching it in the theater, I saw one thing on some clickbait article that says Dune is too big for your TV. And I really believe that because, you can see all the things, but you don't get the scale of the things. When you're in the theater, like when that ship lands and all the Emperor people get out and they have the soldiers lined up, you really get the scope and scale of it, and with the sound... It's more immersive in the theater where you lose yourself in that world. Where if you're just paying attention to the story by itself, without that whole immersive aspect to it, I think you lose quite a bit.
All right, I'll have to hook it up on a VR headset.
That would be a good way to do it. Yeah. But I think that a lot of the bad reviews are probably people that watched it at home versus people that went to the theater to see it.
I get what you're saying to a degree, but that doesn't really change the... It doesn't really change the tone and the pace of the movie. I totally get the scale. Like, I've never gone back and watched Tron Legacy on a little screen. I saw it back in 2010 at an IMAX 3D theater, and it was one of the most amazing pieces of visual art that I've ever seen in 3D. And what's that thing? 10 stories tall. It was just huge and amazing and awesome. And I, the finer points of the plot, kind of escape me right now. It wasn't really all that great, but my God, was it visually awesome. So I get that. But that said, again, comparing it now, I can't really compare it to the book. I haven't read the book, but comparing it to the miniseries, which I understand followed the book pretty close. It's lacking just something. I can't really put my finger on it. And I think it's kind of that political intrigue. Like, really, why did the Emperor... They keep saying, well, the Emperor fears you and this. Well, okay, I get that.
But why? Show me.
But why? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, with an imperial decree, the Harkonnens were gone, and Atreides is here.
House Atreides accepts!
Glory to you and your house.
I was a little nervous when the movie started with voiceover exposition. I'm like, oh no. Because I've complained about that a lot.
Yeah.
At nightfall, the spice harvesters land. The outsiders race against time to avoid the heat of the day.
But it didn't last long. I think the reason I liked it so much was not just the immersive aspect of it, where you look at the visual spectacles. Yeah. I mean, like the scale of, like, you see the little ships on your TV, but in the theater, those little ships are big ships, and you get more of the picture of the panoramic view, and it's more like you are participating in the event. It's more immersive that way. Not just like, ooh, look, that's a pretty image. It's not just visual art. You really feel like you're participating in the event almost more than any movie I can recall seeing in recent years. And that was really fun. It isn't a good movie in the sense of, boy, oh boy, was that fun. I think it's a good movie in the sense of, that was interesting, and I was there, and that I was, I felt it when they, I knew it was coming a mile away, but when House Atreides was attacked,
right,
I felt like, oh, when I was there, I felt like I was in the battle. And I appreciated that a lot. And I wholeheartedly love this movie. Even though it is missing those things you mentioned, I don't really think it's that bad of a thing to be missing, because it's more about the experience and being with these people while they're experiencing what they're experiencing.
Yeah. Well, and Oscar Isaac...
not to mention, Dragonfly helicopters are cool.
Dragonfly helicopters are cool. And Oscar Isaac did just, and I don't know how much of it was his ability to produce a tear or the makeup people or whatever, but he's completely frozen, and a single solitary tear comes down his cheek when they say, your bloodline ends with you or whatever, and like I felt that, I felt that, like, oh God, what? So the acting in it, and the whole review, waste of good actors. I don't wholeheartedly agree with that, because they really lended their talents to this movie and made it as successful as it is, or as good as it is. You kind of had to have, like the miniseries didn't really have, well, it had William Hurt. Do you really want to hurt me? Who's kind of mid-range. He's not like an A-lister, but he's not a B-lister. He's not like Jaleel White or something. As far as making movies, so, but I don't know if they had anybody else.
It didn't have Roger Corman in it, so it had that going for it. It wasn't that low budget.
Wait, which one is Roger Corman?
Roger Corman's like the guy who makes movies with duct tape and camcorders,
like Birdemic.
Yeah,
okay. But
random Roger Corman movie clip.
Oh wait, no, that was Hulk Hogan again.
Oh, damn it. Random clip now.
I could do wonders for that boy. I would recharge his capacitors, stimulate his solenoid, tingle, dingle, dangle, prangle his transistors. Sex.
But
it had really good people in it, and I don't agree with the review that it was a waste of those actors. They did
not a waste. They did, If anything, they made it much better.
The actor who played Paul was interesting. I don't remember seeing him in anything, but he did a good job with the protagonist role.
He kind of needed to be a nobody. And they really played up, one thing they did do very well is they really played up the whole prophecy thing with him.
Yes.
A lot more than I remember it being in the miniseries. And of course, I haven't seen the miniseries in a long time.
Well, they did little touches, like he knew how to put the moisture suit on properly, and there's
and he will know our ways and be whatever. Yeah.
Only together can we stand a chance.
The evil bad guy army, when they were these proper nouns are killing me, but the bad guy army. That was pretty badass, where they're like marking them all with blood, and they have the music.
Just so. 3 battalions. As agreed.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of reminded me of that. There's like a Mongolian heavy metal band.
Oh, yeah. The Who.
Yes.
Yes.
The music reminded me of that.
Oh, my God, The Who. Yes.
But I like the movie quite a bit. I'm happy they're making a sequel. It's not my favorite movie I've ever seen, but it's fun to see these old science fiction books be adapted. I like the Foundation adaptation, although it's very different from the book. But it's interesting to see what they're doing with it. And I hope this is a trend where they start digging up all these old 50s and 60s and 70s science fiction novels and making solid entries where it's not just cartoon violence for the sake of action adventure.
Like iRobot?
Yeah, adapting it not like iRobot, exactly. If they really... Well, Starship Troopers is an excellent adaptation.
It was. Yeah.
That's not a good example, but that's a classic sci-fi book that I love the adaptation of. But I hope they do a lot more of these, because there's a million old great sci-fi books out there that could use this treatment.
Yeah. That's true.
It's all true.
By the way, I will make one little criticism of the movie here, and that
Oh my God, here it comes.
It didn't have anything to do with Star Trek whatsoever, and I just can't get into that now. No,
Did it remind you of an episode of Star Trek?
The fight sequence at the end, the duel with...
where Kirk rips off his shirt?
Yes.
And then Snape kills Dumbledore?
Yes, and he punches at the Gorn really slowly with 2 fists. Yeah.
And then he makes a cannon out of a log.
It was a very anticlimactic fight at the end. I mean, it was so obvious who was going to win, and...
With Paul and yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seemed completely unnecessary and kind of a anticlimactic way to end the movie, but I am really, really, really glad they're making a sequel, because I really want to see what happens next. I love the world building in this. I love getting to explore the... Fremen, is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Their culture. I want to learn more about these sandworms. I kind of know a little bit from the books and things I've read about what happened in future books, what the story of the sandworms is. That could be pretty interesting.
Right. And the poop.
Yes.
Spice's poop. If you haven't seen the miniseries or the original movie, and you don't wait 2 years for the sequel just to find out, Spice is worm poop.
Yes. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say on that. It feels like it could be a real place, even though it's fantastical. It seems lived in. It seems beyond our technological level. I mean, but still seems real. I mean, the sand crawlers, which are very Star Wars-esque, especially with the tank treads. But hey, what are you going to do?
Yeah. What I thought was interesting is they have all this like hover technology, right?
And the personal shields are cool too.
Well, the personal shields are neat, and I get that plot has to move forward, and this probably goes back to the original book, and maybe just we have to write it so that the story exists. But they have as Douglas Adams once said, they hung in the air precisely the way that bricks don't. But you have these ships that can just hang there forever, right? Mm-hmm. Why don't they just have hover ships that harvest the spice and don't touch the ground and make this rhythm for these things to come get them?
Because the book was written in 1963. But anyway, I've run out of things to say about Dune. One of those few examples where I will say I 100% like the book less than the movie, which is sort of opposite of what most people say. Yeah. Most people are always the book was better, and I've been guilty of that too. Yeah. But not always. Sometimes movies kick the book's ass. And in my opinion, this movie is superior to the book because I could understand it and make it through the whole thing. Right. Well, at least the whole half of the thing.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. It's just like an adaptation of Moby Dick. You don't need 27 pages describing what a whale looks like. Mm-hmm.
Or in Stephen King's Cujo, you don't need 8 pages to describe breakfast cereal.
Yes, unless unless the back of the box was being read by like Morgan Freeman or something.
What I'm guessing is that Stephen King was doing cocaine while eating his breakfast and then went to his typewriter.
I do cocaine!
Anyway, please subscribe to our channel. We will review more things in the very near future.
Yes.
And
probably
until
not Dune
then,
2 anytime soon, though.
No, we'll probably have 1 or 2 videos between now and when Dune 2 comes out.
Yes, and we'll have the rest of our lives between now and when Doors of Stone is finally written.
Yes.
I said take only what you need to survive.
It's my industrial strength hairdryer, and I can't live without it!